Hi everybody, what we're doing first here is we're scrubbing up 20 pounds of bananas. We're going to make a 6.5 gallon batch of banana wine. We're not going to have spiced banana, it's going to be just original banana. And I go with the 25 liter carboys typically. When I make wine, I like to make it enough to last for a while. It takes so long to make it that it's nice to have a bunch once you have made it. So what we've done here is we just throw them in the sink with some cold water and a good shake of baking soda on top. That will at least help to remove some of the chemicals on the bananas that, from being sprayed on. It's always preferable to use straight organic fruits and vegetables, I think, but we couldn't this time. So we just went and got some 20 pounds bananas at the supermarket. And so by just scrubbing them off a little bit like this, and then we'll rinse them off, that will remove a lot of any kind of pesticides that you'll find out there. Now, to spare you the grief of watching us pour all this water, what we have here is 5.7 gallons of water that we put into 2 enormous pots. And this is because for the banana wine, we're going to make a liqueur, which is going to be cooked on the stove actually. So what we've done is we've divided up between 2 pots so we have enough room to get all these bananas in here. And what we're going to do is, while we're waiting for this, it's going to take some time to heat this water up to boiling. So we're going to go ahead and light these burners and get this kicked off right away, because it's going to take some time. We'll let this heat up while we go and chop up all these bananas. What we have here is a 6.5 gallon batch of a homemade recipe of dreamsicle wine. And really all that I did is I made a 6.5 gallon batch of orange wine made from orange juice concentrate. And then we're adding a bunch of vanilla beans. These are authentic vanilla beans, which you have to slice open the long way, the length of the bean. And this has already been in secondary fermentation now for I think around 3 months. So this one's well on its way, but as you can, this is what it looks like when it has an airlock on top, it has a stopper, and the wine container, the carboy is filled up. And we go ahead and actually just leave the wines soak with the constituents in it, and that's how we're going to achieve the flavor. I've never done this particular one before, so we're going to see how this ends up working out, but I have high hopes. The next step is to, because this pile of bananas is not deteriorating faster as I hoped, is to break out a bottle of last year's pumpkin pie wine and pour myself a glass to help me get through. Thusly. Cheers! Alrighty, so now that we've got 20 pounds of bananas, and in case you have ever wondered what 20 pounds of sliced bananas look like, there you go, for the record. We've divided them roughly in equal parts into 2 bags. And now what you do is you take something like a twist tie is probably the easiest, although you can tie it off with string. And you tie the nylon bag off, like so, and like so. And then we are going to stick these bananas in the pots, bring them to a boil, and simmer them, and then take it off boil and simmer for 20 to 30 minutes. Into the pot they go, and push them down a little, set the cover on, and into the pot they go. Push them down, put the cover on. We're going to bring them to a boil now. So we'll let those sit, and it's going to take a little bit more time to get this water up to temperature. Alright, here we are in our auxiliary kitchen. Our house is very large and we have 2 kitchens. This is the downstairs kitchen, and we use this primarily for winemaking actually. So what we're going to show you here is how to correctly wash and prepare a primary fermenter. This one is quite large compared to what you may use, and I encourage you actually to probably try making wine in 1 gallon batches to begin with. And I will address that in later entries of the show. But for now, we're making 6.5 gallons. So what we have here is a 17-gallon primary fermenter. I caution you that you do need to use food grade plastic. You cannot use something like from Home Depot, which I've seen a lot of redneck operations use. They'll go get 5-gallon pails from Home Depot or Lowe's. I would strongly advise against that, because whenever you're working with ethyl alcohol, which is what we're trying to generate here, you're going to get leaching of melamines into your wine. So we don't want to cause that. That is toxic to your liver. Therefore, use food grade plastic. The cover, however, is a different story. And what I found for this fermenter, and what you might actually seek out as well, if you can't find an adequate cover, because what we're not trying to do is make an airtight cover for this primary. We're going to let the air in, but we want to keep all the dust and debris falling in the air out. So what I've done is actually take a planter base from my extraordinarily large planter from an outdoor planter. And that's what I'm going to use for the cover for this primary fermenter. You just tip it on over and set it on. It covers larger than the opening, and yet it does allow air access, because in the primary stage of fermentation for winemaking, we do want the wine to have access to oxygen. So it'll fit on like that. But now we're going to show you how to wash something like this. What we're going to actually do is wash it with soap and water, with just regular dish soap. And you can scrub it up with that pretty good. This is not the important part of the operation of washing, but what I've noticed that a lot of people do not make a clean enough environment for their wine. One thing is paramount in winemaking is that the containers that you're going to use for secondary fermentation, the carboy that you're going to use, and any instruments or fingers or anything that comes in contact with the wine in any way needs to be thoroughly sterilized. Actually, running up to this date, I have never lost a batch of wine due to contamination. However, I have heard many nightmare stories about people growing mung or little patties of cheesecake, as it were, on top of their wine, which we do not want to happen. So you just go ahead and wash this out with dish soap well. Even wash any areas that you might think may come in contact inadvertently with the wine. So the top side edges where you might grab with your fingers, go ahead and do all that as well. Rinse it off good with hot water. And then we'll get to the sterilization in a minute. But actually, just for the novice winemaker, this part of the lesson right here is probably the most important in winemaking. Just about everything else will apply to every batch of wine that you make. Well, this will too, but this will always make or break your batches of wine. You want to make sure you get all the soap off of it. No residual soap flavor in the wine either. Set that cover aside, and we'll start getting in the practice of not even wanting to set the areas that will come in contact with wine in contact with anything that might contaminate them. So I'll just give it a little shot of dish soap in here. And here we'll use a sprayer to get into this. Reach on in here. Now, as we eventually proceed in our winemaking process, this is always a no-no, reaching inside or reaching over. You try to avoid that anytime you can. Just like any pharmaceutical company, clean room techniques, you want to actually apply those same things literally to winemaking, and that will always come out with the best batch of wine, best tasting and non-contaminated. And just wash around the edges, maybe even wash the handles a bit. And again, we're going to just go ahead and rinse this out. So, tip it up to the sink here. sprayer to get us up inside there. Slowly rotate your container and allow the sprayer to go ahead and spray up inside and rinse down the whole length of the body of the container. And this is a good method to wash things even if you're only using 1 gallon containers or 2 gallon. Normally you'll use a 2.5 gallon bucket for a 1 gallon batch for your primary fermenter. I'll go around the outside edge. Even if we worry about getting things wet a little bit, we'll still go ahead and just do that. You never want any soap in there in your batch of wine either. Just like you don't want contamination, you also don't want soap or detergents in there. Now, here comes the super critical part. I would take notes on this one. You can go ahead and dump out the water. Now, be careful not to touch anything. What we're going to do is use, now you don't need to do this, and I've never seen anybody other than myself do this particular technique. But as you can see, here is a typical spray bottle that you can buy for like 99 cents at Walmart, okay, or Target. I would go ahead and buy one of these if I was you. And then you take sodium metabisulfite, which is a white looking powder. And you can mix it to the order of, I believe it's 2 ounces to a gallon. Sodium metabisulfite has a very pungent vinegar-like smell that will actually make you cough. The vapor, the water vapor mixed with sodium metabisulfite is not good to inhale actually. And I would actually, if you have any problems with asthma or any other like respiratory issues, exercise caution when using sodium metabisulfite. But you do need to have this. This is what we're going to use to kill any wild yeast that gets on any container. So anything that comes in contact with your wine must be rinsed with a sodium metabisulfite solution or something equivalent. And there are equivalents to sodium metabisulfite, but for now this is what I've used, and I've used it with great success. I actually mix this a little heavier actually than the 2 ounces to 1 gallon of spray. It also does deteriorate over time. So if you end up not using all of your wash solution and you pick up another batch of wine that you decided to do a couple months later, I would go ahead, as long as you do not have any respiratory issues, open up your bottle and give it a sniff. If that vapor accosts your nose and causes you to want to cough, it's still potent. If it is not potent, if it's lost its potency because of sitting too long, you'll notice that and it won't smell as strong anymore. So what I'm going to do is this. Using a spray bottle and adjusting the nozzle to have a wide angle mist, I'm going to go ahead and spray this here primary fermenter. I'm going to spray this down all around. And I've noticed that this is a really great way to get all of the area that comes in contact with wine misted down with sodium metabisulfite and thereby cleaned up. I'm going to go ahead and even spray the outside lip a little bit. It doesn't hurt. So I can smell this really pungently in the air right now. It's not really good to be smelling this, to tell you the truth. So we'll put a bunch in here. A lot of people will just rinse it out. But I also know that some of those people have lost batches of wine because of not being clean enough. So I'm not holding into the area where the wine will be touched. I'm going to take the bottom, and you'll notice there's a little pool of it in the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and thoroughly wash it around. I'll have covered the whole bottom several times. And then you won't see this on the camera very well, but I'm going to tip it up and I'm going to roll it out as I dump it out over the whole container. yeah, see? It's getting in my lungs too and it makes me want to cough. Okay, so now what I've done is I've dumped all that sodium metabisulfite solution out. I've thoroughly coated the entire inside area. And I'm being careful not to go ahead and fluff my hair. Notice how I don't even have long sleeves on and stuff because you'll have a tendency to have hair and lint and stuff on your shirt. I'm going to go ahead and spray the cover in this like manner. To disinfect this cover. Keep in mind, what we're going to use is live organism yeast to create our ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide from sugar. So if that's the case, that we're going to be, actually incubating fungus, we want to make sure we don't get any wild yeast or fungi in there as well, or bacteria for that matter. So now I'm doing the same thing. I thoroughly am washing the inside of this cover, and I'm kind of dumping it out and panning it around so it covers all the surface has been coated thoroughly with the sodium metabisulfite solution. Give it a final shake. Turn it upside down. Kind of shake that out and gently put it on top. Put the cover on. Now what you've got is one nicely sanitized primary fermenter ready for action. Now let's go back up and take a look at how our liqueur is doing.